Hello, my sweet friends. Welcome back to the Lantern Lit Hollow. Here, stories glow softly and help you drift off to sleep. So grab your favorite blanket, snuggle in nice and cozy, and when you're ready, we'll begin. This evening's tale is a relatively well-known one from the Brothers Grimm about a miller's daughter, a king, and a mischievous little imp that likes to take advantage whenever he can. The story is called Rumpelstiltskin. Once upon a time, there was a miller who was very poor, but he had a beautiful daughter. One day, it happened that he had the chance to speak to the king, and in order to seem important to him, he said,
I have a daughter who can spin gold out of straw. Now that is a talent which interests me,
answered the king.
If your daughter is as clever as you say, bring her to my castle tomorrow, and I will put her to the test.
When the young girl arrived the next morning, he took her to a room full of straw, gave her a reel and a spinning wheel, and said,
Now you will start working, and if between now and tomorrow morning you have not spun this straw into gold, you will die.
Thereupon he locked the door securely, and she was left all alone. There sat the poor miller's daughter, not knowing what to do. She had no idea how to spin straw into gold, and she became very frightened and started to cry. Suddenly, the door opened and a little man entered who said to her,
Good evening, beautiful miller's daughter. Why are you crying?
Alas, answered the young girl, I have to spin all this straw into gold, and I don't know how.
What will you give me if I spin it for you?
Asked the little man. My necklace, answered the girl. The little man took the necklace, sat down behind the spinning wheel, and started to spin, spin, spin. He had only spun 3 times, and the reel was full. He replaced it by another one and started to spin, spin, spin. He only spun 3 times, and the second one was full too. He did this all night until dawn broke. All of the straw was spun, and all of the reels were full of gold. As soon as the sun rose, the king arrived. When he saw all the gold, he was extremely pleased, but he was a greedy man and wanted more. He took the miller's daughter to another room full of straw, which was even larger than the one before, in order to spin all the straw into gold in one night if she wanted to stay alive. Once again, she was locked in the room alone, and she began to cry. Then the door opened once again, and the little man appeared and said,
What will you give me if I spin this straw into gold?
The ring I wear on my finger, answered the young girl. The little man took the ring, sat himself down behind the spinning wheel, and by the next morning he had spun all the straw into sparkling gold. The king was delighted at the sight of all this gold, but he still wasn't satisfied. He took the miller's daughter to another room full of straw, even larger than the first 2, and commanded,
You will spin all this straw for me tonight, and if you succeed, you will become my wife. Although she is only a miller's daughter,
he thought,
I couldn't find a richer wife.
When the miller's daughter was left alone, the little man arrived again.
What will you give me this time if I spin the straw into gold?
I don't have any more to give, she answered.
Well, promise me your first child if you become queen,
said the little man. That's never likely to happen, thought the miller's daughter. Still, she promised the little man his wish, and again he spun all the straw into gold. When the king arrived the next morning and saw all the gold, he prepared the wedding, and the pretty miller's daughter became his queen, much to her surprise. 1 year later, when she had forgotten all about the little man, she gave birth to a beautiful child. Then one day he suddenly walked into her room and said,
Well, give me what you have promised.
The queen was terrified and offered the little man all the treasures of the kingdom not to take her child. But the little man answered,
No, I have no need of treasure. You must keep your promise.
Then the queen started to moan and weep. The little man felt sorry for her, and he said,
I will give you 3 days. If within that time you discover my name, I will let you keep your child.
Throughout the whole night, the queen thought about all the names she had ever heard, and she sent a messenger through the country to find out every name that existed. When the little man arrived the next day, she started with Casper, Melikor, Balthazar, and said one name after another until she knew no more. Every time she said a name, the little man said,
That is not my name.
The next day she had inquiries made throughout the entire neighborhood for the name of every single person, and she repeated the strangest and rarest names to the little man. Isn't your name Cow Ribs, or Leg of Mutton, or Spider Legs? She said. But still he answered,
That is not my name.
The third day the messenger came back and said he was not able to find any new names.
However, he said, when I arrived at a huge mountain at the corner of the forest where the foxes and the hares say goodnight to each other, I saw a fire burning in front of a little house. A very strange little man was dancing around this fire. He was hopping on one leg and singing, Today I bake, tomorrow I brew beer. The day after tomorrow I will bring the queen's child here. How lucky I am that nobody knows that Rumpelstiltskin is my name. You can imagine how delighted the queen was when she heard that. Soon afterward, the little man entered and asked her, What is my name?
She answered, Is your name Harry?
No.
Is your name Bert?
No.
Then the queen laughed and said, Is your name, by any chance, Rumpelstiltskin?
It must have been the devil who told you that. It must have been the devil who told you that.
Screamed the little man, red in the face. And in his rage he stamped his right foot so violently on the floor that he disappeared through the ground and was never seen again. And that brings our tale to an end, my sweet friends. Now it is time to turn the lantern down to a soft glow. Snuggle with your favorite stuffy and let yourself drift off to dreamland. Sleep sweet, my dear friends, and I'll be here when next you return to the lantern-lit hollow. Good night.